Hello, this is a brief video tutorial on how to do a confirmatory factor analysis with R Markdown. Um, so similar to my previous videos on how to do an exploratory factor analysis and data prep stuff, we're gonna load the libraries, import and view the data, um, identify and exclude outliers. I'm gonna check for assumptions. Um, such as additivity, linearity, stuff related to regressions essentially. And then after we're done with all of that, then we will run the CFA. I'll show you guys how to create a factor model, how to run it, how to create a path diagram, although it's probably going to be easier for us to just make the path diagram in PowerPoint. Maybe it's probably because my R Kung Fu is not that not that up to speed yet. But I'll show you guys how to load it up. At least you'll know how to load up a path diagram in R. Check for Haywood cases. A lot of times these are things that can help us figure out if there is something seriously wrong with the analyses. You should check for Haywood cases. And then global, we're gonna get global fit indices. We'll check for modification indices, and we'll talk about how we should probably take into consideration theory and not just the numbers. And then we'll take a look at residual correlations as well to help with that decision on if we should revise the model, and if so, how so. And then we're gonna basically rerun the revised model again, create the factor models, run the factor model, create the path diagram, check for Haywood cases, and get global fit indices and write out the results. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna go to File and go to New File, R Markdown. Let's call this CFA. Practice syntax video. So let's output this to Word. Right. Let's get rid of this unnecessary syntax. And if you're my student in my psychometrics class, I would recommend that you just copy and paste these things. Especially for the assignment, please pay attention to that you're using the correct data set. So for the assignment, you should use CFA data assignment.csv. For this example, we'll be using another data set, which I'll show you what data set that is. But let's copy and paste this into RStudio really quick. All right. So first of all, let's load the Levant package. Let's insert. And go. All right. Turned out pretty well. Library SemPlot. All right. And we'll need Levant basically to run the CFA and the SemPlot to make the path diagrams. Oops. I kind of got a hit on myself right there. That was the second part of the question. And please take a look at the grading rubric as well if you're on my psychometrics class. It's basically the instructions right here. I basically just transferred this to this grading rubric. Please pay attention to what how much points are given to each step. Obviously, since this is a CFA assignment, I'm going to give a lot more points for you running the CFA and writing up the results and interpretation. That's going to be really important as well. That's why I assigned it a lot of points. So, no SemPlot. Kind of already did that. So, all right, import and view data. So, I've been having mixed successes with running out the code for importing the data. Let's see if this will work. If you ever run into any problems, you could use the point-and-click interface to make sure that R knows what is your working directory. usually assumes that it's in the same directory as your as where you're saving this R&D file. 794 observations, 30 variables. So that's about right. So 7 CFA basics. This is the data set that we'll be using. So question 1 all the way to question 30, we do have about 700 or so, 794 people. All right. If you ever have any problems with this, click on the session, set working directory, choose directory, and tell R what is the working directory over here. And it will actually spit out the syntax over here. You can run it, and then you can load up your file into the global environment. All right. Use a summary function to figure out how much missing data is in each variable. Summary master. So are there any missing data? So we don't see any NAs over here. So I'm pretty sure this was cleaned up already. Okay, that makes our lives easier. Use the view function to figure out how to view raw data. So a lot of this is basically an iteration of previous videos on how to prep the data. So remember, view is the only one that is capitalized, that has a capitalized alphabet at the beginning of the word. So this lets you actually see the data over here. Don't know why that's one decimal. That's kind of strange. Okay. Use names function. Go. This lets you see the actual variables. Q1 all the way to Q30. That looks about right. Okay. So next step, multivariate outliers. Let's do this. Run Mahal Nobis. So let's do Mahal equals to Mahal Nobis master data set using means Mahal Nobis and equals to true. And covariance table after use pairwise complete. So it's going to delete stuff pairwise if there is any missing data. Probably not going to be relevant for this because we don't have any missing data. Let me just run through this, make sure I type this out correctly. Looks about right. There you go. All right, get a summary of Mahal Nobis values. Go. Summary. Oops. All right. So range 5 till 208. That's a really large one. Okay. Calculate a cutoff score for p less than 0.001 for it's Mahal Nobis. So Q square 1 minus 0.001. Calculate the columns. The master, that's the degrees of freedom. Oops, I mistyped something. There you go. Let me look at that again. Q chi square. Alright. Then find the number of people who exceed the cutoff score. Actually, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. So we got a cutoff score. Let's check the degrees of freedom because you'll need this for the write-up later on. That's 30. And cutoff. It's actually 59.70. Okay. Number of people who exceed the cutoff score. Summary. 69 people exceed the cutoff score. Let's get rid of them. Let's call this the no outliers subset of the master. And are going to be those who have Mahalanobis values below the cutoff. Alright, so let's check over here. What is it before? We had 69 people who had Mahalanobis values larger than the cutoff score. So 69 plus 725. That seems about right. Okay, so now we're going to be using this data set instead. Alright, let's check some assumptions. Oops, sorry. I'm going to read this. First of all, let's run some bivariate correlations. Oops, what just happened? What just happened? Here you go. I want it here. Okay, bivariate correlation. So correl equals to correlations using a no-out data set and use. No, I don't think I need to type this in, but I'm just gonna do it for the sake of just so that you have the syntax. If your data set does have missing data, correlation. Okay. Let's make a table identifying correlations that are higher than 0.9. Correl. And we want to use symbols for numbers, simnum of correl. So we're looking for B's and asterisks. B's and asterisks in this table of bivariate correlations. Don't think I see any. I think we're good. Okay. Provide your interpretation. I'll let you do that. Create. Alright, let's examine linearity assumptions. I think I forgot to. There you go. I just like to have my headers in blue. Helps me make sense of things. Create random chi-square values. There you go. So random equals to r chi-square and row out. Remember, I'm just a random number. That's just the degrees of freedom. Based on the number of rows, we're using all rows on this data. So we're basically creating a random chi-square values for the same number of participants in our data. Okay, and then run a fake regression with these random chi-square values that you just created, predicted by all the relevant variables in the data set. So fake, call this fake, ln, take a random number with all of the columns or variables. Data set is going to be no up. Okay, but use student types residuals based on this fake regression. Standardize our student. Oops. Okay, make QQ plot. Let's make this QQ plot. QQ1, standardize, and we're gonna add an AD line. Alright. So kind of matches. So most of it actually matches. Remember, we have 700 something people over here, and we have like literally only a handful that are not really on this linear curve right here for the quantiles taken from a sample, and this quantile supposedly taken from a linear distribution right here. So I do think we're actually pretty okay. I mean, if you want to be conservative, you could say there might be some slight issues with linearity in regards to this, so we could go with that. But you know, we're looking for gross deviations from this line over here, and I think this is actually pretty okay given the sample size. um, make histogram of standardized residuals. We just made, so let's use the histogram function. Oops. And we basically want a normal distribution, and it's a little slightly positively skewed, but in general, again, I think this is pretty normal. Okay. Next is examine homogeneity and homoscedasticity. Let's make a scatter plot. Created equals to scale fake regression for the values, for predicted values for each person. Okay. Let's plot fitted versus standardized residuals. And let's make some lines 0 to 0, just for the x-axis, and let's make for your y-axis as well. Okay, let's take a closer look. So for homogeneity, you basically want your plots here to be mostly evenly distributed across these 4 quadrants. And so it's mostly okay. I mean, there are a few, again, keep in mind that we have like 700 people over here, so like maybe, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, I'm just looking at the top of it, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So like 10 or 11 of them are basically just kind of on the far end of this thing. So again, depending on if you want to be conservative or not, you could say that homogeneity is fine. Heteroscedasticity is basically we don't want any shapes. It's gonna be a blob of dots, and this looks like a blob of dots to me. The main reason as to why I like to run these things is, especially if your sample size is big, I'm usually not very concerned about these assumptions over here. But if something does go wrong, or if something unexpected does happen in the results, then it helps to know what may be a little bit awry in regards to the assumptions that you're putting into your analysis over here. So I'll be fine either way. If you want to say that homogeneity is fine, or if you want to say that there might be some slight issues with homogeneity, I'll be fine either way, because you have a large sample size. Okay, let's get to finally creating the model itself. And so where did this data set come from? So let me open up the, so this is the practice data set. So remember, this is different from your assignment data set. This comes from the Computer Aversion Attitudes and Familiarity Index. It was a measure that was created by my assessor professor back then. So I have, and the reason why I'm using this is because my stats professor, Dr. Erin Buchanan in Missouri State, she actually used this as an example, and so it was a very convenient way for me to use this as an example too. Unfortunately, right now I don't have access to the specific items corresponding to the item numbers. I do have the brief description of the items, but they're not according to the item numbers. But I do have the response format. It's basically, so let me just open up. There you go. So it's a bunch of different statements, different attitudes in regards to using computers. So I often read computer magazines. A person would read that and then rate themselves on a scale of -3 to 3. -3 being absolutely false, 0 being neutral, and +3 indicating a degree that the item is absolutely true. So it's a Likert type of scale as far as I know. And there are 3 factors. The computer aversion factor, all the items on these factors are reverse score, so you'll do that in this analysis as well. And this is the citation for that. I'll give you a copy of the paper. Now, one disadvantage of using this data set is it's, especially when it comes to model revision, it really helps to know what specific numbers correspond to which item. So I won't be able to walk you through in a very detailed fashion as to what theoretical considerations to consider when you're wanting to say, you know, correlate errors between items. But I'll talk about these things in generalities, so you at least know what to think about when you're doing the assignment. So, anyways, 3 factors. I believe this is 29 items. Let me look at the write-up that I had for this. Let's see if I have this write-up. So, about 30 item. My bad. It's a 30-item archetype scale where respondents indicate their level of agreement or disagreement to various target stations. And 3 factors right here. So we're going to test out the original 3-factor structure. So back to R. Let's create a factor model. Let's call this simply tree model equals to, it may help for you to have this opened on the side. Oh, there you go. Okay, it's good enough. Okay. Equals to tilde. That means this is a latent factor that is predicting or that can explain the following items: 3, 13, 14, 16, 20, and so on and so forth. So that means you use that. 3, 13, 14, 16, 20, 21, 22, 23, 27, 30. I get that right? So 3, 13, 14, 16, 20, 21, 22, 23, 27, and 30. Okay. Next is attitudes. Oops. There we go. That's Q1, that's Q2, Q4, Q5, Q8, Q11, Q18, Q19, Q28, Q29. So 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 11, 18, 19, 28, 29. Alright. Last but not least, conversion. Reverse score. No, we did not. So we definitely need to reverse score this. Sorry about that. Okay. So first score. Sure I have. Let's just steal something from another syntax that I wrote up real quickly. Oops, sorry about that. What's going on here? Let's see. Okay. So we need to go back in here and do this. When I do that, let me change the question. At least add something in here. Move this. Oh, I don't know why. Probably it's because your assignment This is going to be using an instrument that does not need any type of reverse scoring. That's the reason why I don't have it in your assignment over here. But for the example, there will be some reverse scoring. So let me just do this real quick. So before we do that, let's do this. Alright, so it's -3 to +3, and it's gonna be basically what items again? Oops. Where are the instructions? Let me take a look. Nope, that's the assignment. There you go. 6, 7. Alright, so let's add this. 6, 7, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, 15, 17, 24, 25, 26. So 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, 15, 17, 24, 25, 26. Same thing. It's going to be 3 plus 1, which is 4. Take a look at 6. So before, oops. Alright, I might need to start from scratch again, but that's okay. This shouldn't take too long at all. So let's read the data set. Done all that already. Oh, that's the reason why. There you go. Alright, so question 6, for example, has item responses from -3 to 3, and we see the frequencies down here. So 382 people, for example, circled 3, or endorsed 3. In that. So we're going to reverse score that. And let's check again. Number 6. And that seems like it did it right. So I'm assuming that it did it right for the rest of the other items as well. So let's do this again. So I'll know this. Summary. Color score. Degrees of freedom. Okay. So identify them. 69 people. So it's still the same as before. My memory serves me right. Okay, now we have removed all the outliers. Okay, additivity assumption, correlation table, looks good to me. Yep, okay. And the narrative assumption, we can look at fit regression, QQ plot. It seems about the same as before. But most of the ones that are between -2 and +2 are pretty linear. Okay, histogram. Yeah, it's slightly positively skewed, but overall, pretty okay. Values, maybe homoscedasticity, that's pretty much about the same as before. It's a blob, and maybe some slight issues here in regards to homogeneity. Okay, like to hear again. So we were creating the 3-factor model version. What was it? Okay, so it was Q6, Q7, Q9, Q10, Q12, Q15, Q17, Q24, Q25, Q26, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, 15, 17, 24, 25, 26. That. Let's create this 3-factor model. Okay. And then let's run the factor model. prefix, CFA, model, data equals to no outliers. Okay, let's make a path diagram. Again, this is not going to look really clean, but at the very least, you know that R is capable of doing this. If you ever want to know what else you can do to, so this is asking for standardized values. Layout equals to true, that's the style that will work for us. That just sets the font size for the label, and this sets the margin. Okay. Now, if you're running R for the first time, you might not need to run this code right here. For some reason, my version of R is kind of messed up. When I was kind of tinkering around with R Studio before, it changed some of the defaults for some of these things, so I had to kind of manually put this in, so the numbers that come out at least are sort of legible. Again, I much prefer to do this in PowerPoint. If you ever want to know what other codes can do to format your path diagrams here in R, just type in $?cn path, and if you can do that, it's going to show you all the different stuff that you can do with this. Right? And so you basically insert these arguments right here when you're making your path diagrams. Okay. All right. Let's run this and see if. Oops. Let me double check. Send path. CNS. Prefix. What labels? Layout. Tree. Edge table. CX. Let's try this without format. See how that looks like. Okay, let's see. Let's go. Not happy with me. This will run this time. So unexpected comma. The comma. I'm confused. Unexpected comma. Let's try. I don't know why. There we go. Alright. There we go. And here it is. Ooh, that's really small. So let me format that again. I want the label zero margins equals to, this should be 3 by default, but sometimes it just I guess a little bit better. That's a little bit better. So you can see here that we are running a three-factor model. Um, the three latent factors by the specific manifest variables over here are your items. You can see that the variance is set to 1. That's used to scale your factors essentially. And the other thing that it uses to scale is to scale based on the value of the first manifest variable for each factor right here. So Q3, Q1, Q6. The numbers in here should be values that you get based on when you're standardizing based on the first manifest variables as well as the variances. And so typically these would be the numbers that you would get also in an exploratory factor analysis. These are the correlations between the factors right here. So again, it's really hard for you to make this legible. As long as you can run this, I'll be fine with that. I can show you how to get this in PowerPoint a lot easier, a lot quicker, and be less headache too. But there'll be another video for another time. Right. Next, we need to check for Hayward cases. Summary. Okay. Standard equals true. The reason why we want this is because we want the squared multiple correlations. Hayward cases are basically caused by either one or two things. Squared multiple correlations that are over 1 or negative error variance. So squared multiple correlations, or SCMS, to get that we need to say standardized equals true here in the argument, and then to get the R square, we want to say that that's true as well. Sorry, I'm totally messing this up. So if we want these square multiple correlations, we want R square. Standardized just basically means that we want to get different scaling results. So we can get results that are based on, if you just standardize based on the first manifest variable, or if you just standardize just based on the variance being fixed to 1. Or you could get the values for when you are standardizing based on the variance being based on the variance being fixed to 1, and as well as your first manifest variable. So standardized equals true just gives you a bunch of different options. That's why you do that. Okay. All right. So R square. Remember, R square just mathematically, it cannot be over 1, so we're just looking down here down the line. For anything over 1, we don't see, so that looks good. And we don't want any of the differences to be negative, because that doesn't make sense at all as well mathematically. So any negative ones over here, none, so we should be good. So we are good in terms of Hayward cases. Usually R will also give you a warning notification. If you try to run the model and get the global fit indices, it will tell you if you're having Hayward cases, but it's just a nice way for you to find out on your own as well, and not have to wait for R Studio to shout in your ear that there's something weird going on. So let's get the global fit indices. Measures. So in general, what these fit indices will tell you is how well your theoretical factor model is able to reproduce the correlation matrix that is coming from the actual data itself. So you basically want a couple of things in here, and I've actually preloaded this already to save time. We want chi-square, so chi-square is coming from here. 2731. So it's a little bit different, so I need to update these values. 2731.161. And then REMC is 0.089. I think these values are coming from when I did not reverse score the items for the third factor. But as you can see, it's not going to change the results a whole lot, even with this reverse scoring up here. So 0.089, 0.086 to 0.093. But that's still kind of in the mediocre level. SR and R 0.084, so that's still not good. You want SR and R to be less than 0.08. CFI 0.724 and 0.702. And let's get your AIC and BIC as well. These two fit indices are going to be very useful when comparing non-nested models. So just get those values too while we're at it. This will be relevant when you start comparing models in just a little bit. Alright. Basically, everything is pretty bad, and this is acceptable. So we might need to revise the model. Let's take a look at modification indices. Mod indices, fit, sort, go true. This will sort it and give you the highest values first at the very top, which will make it a lot easier. Minimum values, we're going to set it to 10.82. That corresponds to p less than 0.001. So basically, when it comes to taking into consideration the revisions that you might want to consider, you want to take into account the revisions that give you the largest modification indices, especially the ones that have critical values that have critical values that have p of less than 0.001, and expected parameter change, so EPC values that are large in effect size. So any R that's bigger than 0.50, I think should be pretty large in terms of their standardized EPC values. In addition to that, not just math, you want to take into account theory. So let's run this. Okay. So the nice thing about this output here is that it gives you the actual code for you to revise the model. So Q14 tilde Q23, that basically means that we're wanting to correlate the residuals for those two items. And if you do that, your modification index is 372.931. Ooh, that's really significant, because all you need is just 10.82. If you look at standardized EPC values, let's use this one right here. So anything above 0.5 would be what we probably want to consider over there in terms of the effect size. So 14 correlating with 23. 21 and 23, 14 and 21. And this is where it really is a disadvantage that I don't have the actual items corresponding to the specific item number, so I don't really know what Q14 says. But assuming that I do know what Q14 and Q23 says, basically what I want to do is I want to revisit those items, reread those things again, and then ask myself, is there any particular reason for me to believe that these two items have a shared variance that is over and above the common variance that they already share because they have the same latent factor? If there isn't any theoretical argument supporting that, then um, don't just change the model based on the modification indices or the effect size. You definitely need to have theory in this. So just by looking at this, I would say the thing that could give me the most bang for my buck, because I don't really know what's in these items here. I'm just gonna discard item 23 because we have a bunch of items in loading onto that factor already. So question 23, loading onto familiarity, and this may reduce the say, for example, the predictive validity of the latent factor itself. But just for the sake of doing this demonstration, because I just want to show you what are some things to consider after you revise the model. So in this write-up over here, this is kind of what I have written. So the largest modification index, blah, 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 suggested that items 14 and 23 should have correlated residuals. In addition to that, 21 and 23, 14 and 21, and 3 and 30. Because all of them provided MI and EPC values above the aforementioned thresholds, which is right here. So let's just say I decide after inspecting the items that they do share wording effects. Now, typically, wording effects are going to be items that are reverse scored. So let's say, for example, if there is an item on this measure that says, I love using computers, and then another item that says, I hate using computers. Now, those two items, they may share a unique variance with one another, not because of any other reason other than the fact that they're just the inverse of one another. So they could have wording effects, especially if you have some something that's just stated the other way. There could be other theoretical reasons as well. In your assignment, just provide me a theoretical reason as to why you think a certain item pairs may have correlated residuals. So include theoretical rationale if you do think you have one. If you don't, if you think there is a problematic item that's causing multiple issues, you could say something like this. So I put in here, however, we were not able to locate or identify any compelling theoretically based arguments for making such revisions. So given item 23's residual correlations with items 14 and 21, we decided to discard item 23 and rerun the factor model. So I'm going to run this one more time, this time without item 23, because that might just take care of this correlated residual with 14 and 21 right here. That might give us the most bang for our buck. Okay, so where was I? Now we can also take a look at residual correlations. I'll show you what that is. So without going too deeply into the math, basically you gotta remember that factor analysis tries to express each variable as a sum of two portions, the common and unique portions. So the common portions of all the variables are by definition fully explained by the latent factors that you're perceiving in your model. The unique portions are ideally perfectly uncorrelated with one another, because if they do share any common variance within that same factor, it should be explained by that factor. The degree to which a given data set fits this condition can be judged from this very rough analysis called by looking at the residual correlation matrix. Correlations found in this way are correlations that would have to be allowed among the unique portions of the variables as opposed to the common portion of the variables, in order to make the common portions of the variables fit the hypothesis of your model. If you have really high unique correlations over here, that basically means that 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 increases the likelihood that your model is not doing a very good job of explaining how your items covariate with one another. That's essentially what factor analysis is. So to get the correlations, the syntax is a little bit more involved over here. So we want to do correl residuals tree fit type equals to core. So we're asking for correlations instead of covariances. And then let's view it. So view correl. So we're picking the correlation in this correlation table. So this is all nice, and so you get the residual correlations right here. But I think what would be a more useful way to examine this is we want to look at correlations that have really large, that are statistically significant, and to do that, we can transform these correlations into z-scores. So to do that, use this code, z correl residuals tree type equals to standardized. Let's run this, and then let's view it. Correlations into z-scores. Why COV? I'm not really sure. Okay, so now we have z-scores right here. So anything larger than 1.96 really is significant at a p less than 0.05 level. Anything larger than 2.58 plus or minus is going to be p less than 0.01. Z-score that is larger than 3.23 or smaller than negative 3.23 is p less than 0.001. And so based on the modification indices earlier, the culprits are potentially items 23, 21, 14. If you look at item 23, you do residual correlation. So these are fairly large numbers right here. So 12. So let's compare 23 and say 27, for example. If you look at the z-scores for 27, 6 and negative 5, 8 and negative 4. For question 23, we have negative 8, and correlating with 20, as well as with 3, and those are pretty large, so that's 12, that's with 14, 21, so it's pretty consistent with what the modification indices are telling us. So assuming that there aren't any theoretical rationale for doing any of these correlations because I don't have access to the items right now, let's just get rid of item 23 and see if that significantly improves the model. Come back here. Let's create the factor model. Let's call it revise tree model equals to, and let's just copy and paste the model from here and just change it from that. Oops. Insert this. Call this revise. And so we are removing question 23. Alright. Let's run. Let's create that. Let's run the factor model. Let's create a path diagram. So same thing like what we did before. So you pretty much copy and paste. Oops. make sure you're picking the right model right here. What labels? Okay. Okay, that changed slightly. I think that looks good. So copy the cases. Just copy and paste the code for that. Revise, fit. And for R square, we don't want anything to be more than 1. It's good. And for the error variance, nothing that's negative. And that looks good too. Let's look at global fit indices. Good measures, revise tree fit. Okay. Chi-square. And the reason why I still have chi-square over here in the degrees of freedom is because it's a pretty traditional global fit index that lots of people know about, but in recent years it's kind of fallen out of favor because its significance is impacted by a lot of different factors or variables such as sample size, assumptions that goes into it, and so yeah, I have it over here. I typically report it in papers, but I don't even try to interpret it, and I do explain why in my papers as well, typically. So REMC 0.078, that's less than 0.8. So what was the REMC? So that's adequate model fit. .089 is actually mediocre. Let's make this, I don't know, maybe make this orange just to, or some other color. How about this color? Right, SRMR 0.073, CFI 0.782, and TLI 0.763, and AIC. So how do I interpret AIC and BIC values? So basically, the model that has the lower values for AIC and BIC would be the model that has significantly better fit compared to the other one. And really anything larger than 10 points would be considered significant. So 62545, 60176, this is clearly more than 10 points. Same thing with this as well, 60834 and 60456. And so in the write-up, it will kind of look like this. In order to conduct a direct comparison of the original and revised three-factor models, we compute IK and Bayes information criterion, fit indices for both models, lower values are better, larger, equal to or larger than 10 is basically what we want. And this is where we start plugging in the CFI, TLI, and that. So this should be slightly different. It's on 8.76, REMC 0.078. Oh, it's actually updated, SRMR 0.073. More importantly, inspection of the AIC and BIC values suggests that the revised three-factor model had significantly better model fit compared to the original three-factor model. So yay, that's great. So altogether, these global fit indices appear to support better fit for the revised three-factor model over the original three-factor model. So running up our results, once you've done running up the results over here, copy and paste this. Alright, and you would knit them together using the R markup function. I'm just checking to see if everything looks right. So there you have it. That's how you run a confirmatory factor analysis in R. Hope you had fun watching this video. Try to do this on your own using the practice data set based on this video. See if you can reproduce the results over here. And then once you're done with that, then you can go ahead and try the assignment. And yeah, so have fun with this. Let me know if you have questions, and stay tuned for my next video.